And I think that's one of the things that I've reflected on a lot. You know, here was a group of New Zealanders who had gathered for a place of peaceful worship, and who should have been able to safely worship, and who have, them and their families' lives have been devastated by the acts of this terrorist. But it is the fact that it is so confronting to us as New Zealanders that it happened in that place of peaceful worship, where, you know, that our Muslim community would have been in a place of deep contemplation when it was so clearly targeted at them and timed to target them while they were worshipping. That I find deeply confronting, and that is, I think, one of the things that will have only compounded the anger and grief that New Zealanders feel. I was actually travelling in regional New Zealand. I was in a city called New Plymouth when had it reported to me that there were gunshots, potentially multiple attackers. It took a while for information to come through, but I travelled as quickly as I could. After I heard the news and was able to address the media, travelled as quickly as I could to Wellington, and within 72 hours, our cabinet had met, decisions around a response had been made, but my immediate concern before our ministers and government came together was actually ensuring the security of our Muslim community in New Zealand. We have had a police presence at mosques to assure the community that they can enter into their mosques with a sense of safety and security. My job now is to ensure that ongoing sense of safety and security. It actually has taken, so from the moment that the first call was made into police, they tell me that it was less than 5 minutes from the time the call was made for that first response to be on site, and less than 30 minutes now, they tell me, when an arrest was made, keeping in mind that this terrorist at that time, the police did not know, were they acting alone? Were there other terrorists involved? Did they have other weapons and potentially even other bombs? So it was a very difficult situation. But some of you may have seen the response from our police. They went straight in for the arrest, rammed the car, removed the attacker, even though there were bombs in the car, and they weren't aware of whether or not it was, again, multiple terrorists. It takes some time, some hours to establish whether or not the others who were arrested were related or not. And as you'll know now, very much it appears that this was a single terrorist attacker. However, there has been a subsequent arrest tangentially during the course of gathering evidence of someone who has been charged with crimes around essentially that indicate engaging in the kind of hateful ideology that the terrorist also held. That's something that we utterly must acknowledge. This was not a New Zealand citizen. This was not someone who was raised here or who picked up their ideology here. They were an Australian citizen who chose New Zealand specifically for the fact that we are an inclusive nation, a nation that practices many faiths and speaks many languages. And in this terrorist mind, that made us a target. However, what I will absolutely acknowledge is even though this terrorist act was committed by someone who was not a New Zealander, we cannot ignore that, as many nations do, that there are those in New Zealand, albeit small, who will share the ideology of this attacker, and we must root that out. I've been very clear on this. Social media cannot be a place where we see these kinds of ideas filtered out or perpetuated, and we have to take responsibility for creating and preserving our reputation as being a peace-loving, inclusive nation. For me, the case for using the word terrorist is utterly clear. This was a terrorist act. This was a direct attack, a very direct attack, a deliberate attack on New Zealand's Muslim community. We should call it what it is. And it was the absolute appropriate language to use for what this was.